Welcome to the Consumer and Business Update. Now, here's your host, Barry Foster.
And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Flora Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, just put them in the comments below. We'll get back to you. And always looking for ideas for different kinds of programs and different kinds of things you'd like to see. We have Bill Herrle on the phone, who is the Florida Executive Director of the National Federation of Independent Businesses. Bill, good to have you with us this morning, my friend.
Hi, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the National Federation. Excuse me, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. This is actually a nationwide organization, right?
Oh, sure. The NFIB's been around for a long time. We've got a long, complicated name. NFIB stands for the National Federation of Independent Business, but every word means something. We are a national group and we are federated, which means that unlike other groups, we're seamless between our advocacy at the state and federal level, which is a good thing. And we represent independent business owners.
Now,
And we proudly wear the white hat of small business. But what really defines our members is that they're independently owned. We have no publicly traded companies, and we have found that whether they're large or small, if a business is independently owned, they think the same way, and their number one priority is protecting free enterprise. If they've got that, then these entrepreneurs are free to do what they do best.
well, how many members do you have, and what does it take to become a member of the NFIB?
Sure. We have about 10,000 members in Florida and about 300,000 nationwide. And I'm never cease to be marveled by the types of endeavors our members are engaged in. Of course, they're your folks on Main Street, the shops, the retailers, the auto body shops, the mechanics, your plumbers, all of your trades. We're very well represented across the economic spectrum. But the real similarity is they're all your neighbors in your community that are making your community better and providing jobs.
As the head of the Florida NFIB, do you have any unique problems that maybe the other 49 states don't enjoy?
You know, Barry, I wake up every day thanking God that I don't have my job in some other states, and you know the states I'm talking about. I have the blessing to wake up in the great state of Florida, in Florida's capital, and so my duties are principally in Tallahassee. And I am grateful for the strong economy we have and the consistent, strong conservative leadership we have enjoyed in Florida for years. That doesn't mean we don't have challenges. We go at it every day with those that want to make it difficult for small business owners. Over the year, we have tangled ferociously with foes of free enterprise like the trial bar, who regularly go out there and try to find new ways to sue people and embroil small business owners. And of course, we have the challenge of continuing to try to improve our very pro small business economy in Florida. Can I tell you about the rent tax? Boy, that is an achievement. For over 10 years, we've been trying to chip away at the sales tax on commercial leases in Florida. We're the only state in the union that charges a sales tax on business rent. So your friendly ice cream shop goes out and rents some space and opens up, and they find out quickly that they're paying Florida sales tax on their rent every month. Well, after 10 years of steady effort and chipping away at the 6% sales tax in Florida, we had it down to 2%. And thank goodness the legislature found their way to fully and completely eliminate it this year. which is to say zero. And that legislation passed. Uh, it has yet to arrive on the governor's desk, although there are sidewalk rumors in Tallahassee that it might be today. So there might be some breaking news at any minute that the governor has received uh, Florida's own version of the big beautiful bill, cutting the rent, which among other things, like the traditional sales tax holidays and so forth, will fully and finally eliminate the rent tax in Florida. Now, for close, sharp pencil people, they will be mindful that just like the ordinary sales tax, there are local options that can be added onto the sales tax in various counties. People usually know what it is in their county. It's a little bit different in every county, but that too, at least as in it relates to the rent tax, is fully eliminated as well in this legislation that will soon be available for the governor's signature.
Well,
The governor go ahead.
that was one of the big victories that you guys had in this year's Florida budget was the elimination of tax on business rent. I know you've been dogging that for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah. The governor's indicated that he will sign it. So we are eager for that, and it will become effective on October 1. So all business owners paying the rent tax can look for notices that will probably come from their landlord saying, your rent just went down a little bit. And that's always welcome news to a small business owner.
Well, I know that that's one of they also repealed the aviation fuel tax. I mean, overall, I think they cut $3 billion out of the budget and cut about 750 positions statewide. So this has been a pretty good year for tax cuts in the Sunshine State.
It sure has. We had a very aggressive leadership in the House, true conservative leadership that took a real keen eye to reducing the budget that still weighed in at $115 billion this year. And we appreciate the diligence they exercised in this year's budget. But I'll still remind people that the Florida budget only tilted over $100 million. I think about 7 years ago. So, as the state grows, the budget does continue to grow so we can meet the needs of Floridians. But I think generally conservatives can be proud of our budget diligence that we exercise in this state, particularly when you look at other states that have enormously burdensome state budget deficits and person on a pro rata basis spend wildly compared to Florida. And if you ask me, don't necessarily provide more effective services to their citizens. So I think Floridians can uh, thank their legislature and the governor for consistent, firm-handed leadership over the years.
There was also a venture tax credit program. Was that something that the NFIB was tracking or had any hand in?
I'm sorry, a tax credit for what?
A venture tax credit program. I think that's for businesses who want to branch out and do more and invest venture capitals. Is that something the NFIB had tracked or had advocated for?
We've seen legislation like that. I can't point to what is included in the big tax bill on that. Sometimes that's a game for the big boys, Small business owners typically finance their business out of their life savings. And when that doesn't do the job, it often is financed by a second or third mortgage on their home. That's the difference between corporations and small business owners. When a small business owner puts skin in the game, it's really means they're putting their personal life savings on the line and opening up their door, waiting for that first customer to walk in.
I know that tort reform has been something that you mentioned a little earlier about legal reform is what the NFIB has been working on.
Right.
Is it true that the rules are different in Florida? Are things different here?
Well, in 2023, with Governor DeSantis's leadership, we were able to pass a really significant lawsuit abuse reform package that since then has become the high water mark for other states to try to achieve. It was very important. And the best indicator that we had done something right was the absolute flood of lawsuits that were filed before the deadline that this bill came into effect, knowing that they would have a little bit better chance of having their ridiculous lawsuits succeed if they got them in under the wire. It did a lot of things. But the most important, in my view, of what it did was it moved us to contributory negligence so that a person's personal actions are held into account in lawsuits. It said that if a plaintiff is more than 51% at fault for the injury, then there can be no claim. And we think that that is a huge step towards reducing speculative and frivolous lawsuits. So we passed that in 2023. And I don't criticize this. It's a natural part of our process. But in this year, I think there was a significant reexamination of the legislature of what they had done in 2023. Bills were filed that could have undone real important parts of the 23 reform. And you know what? We brought them up in front of committees and they were debated all over again. Ultimately, in their wisdom, the legislature did not pass and did not undo any of the 2023 reforms, but they did get a thorough vetting again. And while it might have been a little frightful for us folks that are advocates of it, we kind of appreciate the process. You know, we know that it has stood up now, both in the courts and in an even closer examination by the legislature, and we're starting to see some good effects by it. Now, I won't necessarily point to the homeowners insurance sector because that is extremely complex industry. But even in that market, we're seeing a little bit of turning around of that aircraft carrier. We have certainly seen that in other general liability lines of insurance that are so important for small business owners to be able to open their doors every day.
In the
So tort reform looks like it's always going to be an issue, Barry, but it looks like we're still in a good place on that.
in defending the 2023 wins that you had, does it make it now easier to continue to defend it through precedents? Through they've tried it, and the legislature wouldn't go for it. Does that make it kind of easier to stand your ground, if you will?
I think so. We're calling this year a win on tort reform, indeed, because none of those bills that would have undone the work of 2023 ever made it to the governor's desk. Now, we'd like to think that the governor would continue to stand in support of it and would have vetoed them, and we would have chased that rabbit down that trail had that happened. But yeah, I've got to call. I've got to call 2025 legislative session a win for small business owners on protecting their liability exposure every day.
One of the goals I know was to get insurance costs down. Over the 2 years, have you seen an easing, a cause and effect, an easing of insurance rates because of
Mhm.
the reduced lawsuit abuse and the statute of limitations and all the things that you were able to accomplish back in 23?
We are, uh, but it requires continued patience because insurance has a long tail. You don't see the effect of it, the effect of, you know, of it until all of those claims are litigated, chased down through the courts, adjudicated, sometimes appealed, and appellate courts addressing the issue. So Insurance has it's like that snake that left the room 5 minutes ago and you're still seeing it around the corner. It just has a long and lasting impact. So we're letting those things clock through. But so even 2 years out, you can call it only early indicators, but all those indicators are positive. Now, again, I still separate out the homeowners insurance sector because I know that's what every Floridian homeowner faces. There probably needs to be continued work on that, and it is a very complex issue that involves not just the insurance industry. There are many factors at work there.
We're talking with Bill Herrle, the Florida Executive Director for the National Federation of Independent Business, about some of the goals and some of the successes that they've had over the past few years. One thing that I've learned that I did not know, that many of these suits are pushed by third parties. That some of the money's even coming from out of the country. Have you been able to do much about that, or is that still a goal that's out in front of you?
Well, I'll tell you what, looking ahead on trying to restore our judicial system, NFIB has been advocating reforms to the practice of financing litigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pernicious practice that a lot of people don't even know is going on. But if you're injured in this state and you file a lawsuit, you can sell your rights to that lawsuit to another person. And let me tell you, there are people who are savvy to this and look at a lawsuit at the moment it's filed as an investment opportunity. And they can gather these things up in large bunches and sell them as an investment instrument. A lot of people are shocked when they find that this is going on. To me, it actually smacks of gambling on the outcome of our courts, which quite honestly, I find repugnant. Now, I find that disagreeable, even if my fellow Floridian is engaging in this. But what we have been able to reveal is that some of these in dollars for investments in the outcomes of our courts are being made by foreigners, and we think that that is just an aberration, just not what Lady Justice has in mind. It's not my picture of justice, and it's not most people. So we filed legislation for the past couple of years that, I don't know if it would stop it, but it would peel back the curtain on this practice so more people could be aware of it. Requiring that if there is an investor in your lawsuit, that needs to be public knowledge. Now, it hasn't, it's been kicked around a little bit by the legislature. It was far reaching enough that it didn't make it as a part of the 2023 reform. But I think we will see that legislation addressed again in the next legislative session. And I know that on behalf of my small business owners, members of the NFIB, they are sickened by this practice, and we need to try to stem that tide.
Bill, I was going to ask about that. The state budget season, if you will, is kind of over. It's going to land on the governor's desk for his approval or disapproval or whatever. But this tort reform, that's an ongoing process. That's a 365-day a year process in battling that and trying to get that the way you need to have it for the benefit of independent businesses.
Oh yeah, while we celebrated the 23 reform, uh, there are still a lot of personal injury lawyers out there that they're going to find a way to make a living, and they don't make a living unless they can find someone they can convince to file a lawsuit. I don't need to point out to any Floridian who goes outside house is usually gets saturated by you can't drive the kid to school without seeing a billboard inviting you to file a lawsuit with your favorite law firm. You can't turn on the TV and get through one commercial segment without seeing ads for these folks. They call themselves officers of the court. Um, Maybe they are, and maybe that's their duty. But let's face it, they're an industry, and they're going to find ways to fight back on this, and that's what we accept as just an ongoing part of this process.
We've been talking about Florida and things that are happening here in the Sunshine State, but the NFIB also has their finger in the big, beautiful bill, do they not?
Oh boy, don't we ever, you know? And it is a number one priority for the National Federation of Independent Business. Uh, it is critical to small business owners that we continue and defend the 2017 small business tax deduction. Most people have heard that if the big beautiful bill doesn't pass, it will be the largest tax increase in America's history. What a lot of people don't point out is that largest tax increase in America's history will be borne mostly by small business owners, because what it would allow to the repeal is the small business 20% tax deduction. Most small businesses are not organized as corporations. They take the profits of their small business as personal income and pay the same tax rates you do on it, which are much higher than corporate rates. Well, the small business 20% deduction helps equalize that for small business owners. And without the big beautiful bill passing, that expires on December 31st of this year. So we have got to get this passed, and NFIB owners, members, and business owners nationwide have been answering the call and made it loud and clear to Congress that we've got to have this small business tax deduction renewed. And, what can I tell you of our status right now? Well, it is in the bill. It is in the big, beautiful bill. And it will also be made permanent. Unlike when it passed in 2017 with a sunset on it, which is causing us to have to pass it all over again. This time, if it passes as it stands at the moment, it would be made permanent. And I can't think of any one thing that will boost uh, small business owners' commitment to their communities and give them the courage to invest even more in building their local small business than making the small business tax deduction permanent. So we're looking forward to getting it on the president's desk. Your guess is as good as mine, whether we'll have this signed on by the 4th of July, like the president is hoping. But I know that we're swinging away at that to get it on the president's desk as soon as possible.
And to be honest, any such increase on independent businesses ultimately ends up in the hands of the consumers, because they have to pass, if not all, a bulk of that on to the consumer in the form of higher prices.
That's the way business operates. Yeah. So we feel like it's, I've always appropriated the old saying of, what's good for GM is good for the country. Well, I believe what's good for small business is good for the country. It's good for your community. It's good for your Main Street. Who doesn't feel better when they drive down the street and see a locally operated business thriving and succeeding? We know these people, and we know that they're committed to the future of our communities. So it's a great thing to support them.
Well, I know the NFIB has been involved in, the state legislature and also, as we just pointed out, in national politics. Do you go on the other side? Do you get down in county and municipal politics at all to make things easier for businesses in different areas of the Sunshine State?
Boy, we'd love to, but the reality of that is there's one federal government and 50 state governments, but there are about 3,000 uh, plus local governments out there in this country, and we just, haven't tackled that one. But I will tell you, we never lose sight of this. Uh, you know, Florida is a sovereign state and does have all the authority it needs to control local government. And we can and we should at times in your state capital through our deliberative legislative process limit the ability of local governments to tax and burden small businesses. So we have engaged in local issues where needed to uh, preempt or prevent city and county governments from acting in a abusive or over regulatory or overtaxing manner towards small businesses. But cross the nation from start to finish, that's an awful big task.
So, Bill, do you get much feedback from the thousands of members you have here in Florida of things that they're happy about, things that they're unhappy about, suggestions of things they'd like to see?
Oh, all the time. I will tell you, a founding principle of NFIB is we don't have a elite board that decides where we stand. And God knows we don't, we are completely invulnerable to some, huge corporation walking into our office and saying, this is where you're going to stand. We're a small d democracy at NFIB. And when you become a member of NFIB, you'll find out that we ballot our members regularly throughout the year, asking their opinion on proposed public policy ideas and proposed legislation. And by God, where they vote on that is where NFIB stands. So we are very much led by our members. That leads us to be, generally speaking, for lower taxes, for less regulations, for standing up to the insurance industry, for tackling the trial bar, and trying to defend free enterprise at every turn. So we hear from our members on a regular basis. And of course, we're easy to find. Just punch NFIB into your phone and we will pop up.
So Bill, how does one become a member of the NFIB? What does it take to join and put the NFIB decal on your front door?
Sure. We're easy to find and we're easy to join. Like I said, just punch NFIB into your search engine and NFIB will pop up and click on it, and you'll find that if you're a small or rather a independently owned business in America, then you're eligible for membership, and we have a voluntary dues. My typical member in Florida pays about $350 a year. Uh, it is a voluntary due structure, so I'm very flattered that they find us worth that investment every year.
Is there any limitation on how big or how small you can be an NFIB member? One member, 100,000 members? Is
Yeah,
there any kind of?
there's not a size limit on our membership, but this is the important limitation to NFIB. You must be privately owned. You must be an independent business. You cannot be a publicly traded company. And that has served us so well because I have found time and time again, whether you are a sole proprietor, a startup, literally a kitchen table business, or whether you have a couple thousand employees, and we do have members that have large multi-state operations, but they're independently owned, and that 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 is a common thread that usually leads them to seeing things similarly when it comes to what they expect from their state and federal government.
So the National Federation of Independent Business has a web page. Are you on social media at all? Do you do any X or Instagram or Facebook, that kind of thing?
Well, you won't find me there very often, Barry, but on behalf of, and but you will find NFIB on all the social media platforms, and of course online at our home base of nfib.org.
So, Bill, as we get ready to close this off, what's on the future? What's on the table for the NFIB? Do you have things that you wanted to get accomplished this year and did not? Are there goals that you have to move forward into the 26-27 year?
Yeah, Barry, I'll admit, this has been a couple of watershed years for small business owners, and that we passed, that tort reform package in 23. We've been chasing that for 20 years. We've got the rent tax eliminated now, finally. We've been chasing that for 10 years. Looking ahead, I'll tell you, in trying to further improve the small business environment, we're taking at the state level a real close look at the tangible personal property tax. That is a tax, like a property tax that business owners pay on all their tangible assets every year, like their file cabinets, desks, manufacturing equipment, tools, all those things they go out and work with, they pay a tax on year in and year out. So we're going to take a look at that and see if we can maybe address that. And I know you've heard from the governor and legislative leaders. There's a lot of interest at really taking a hard, strong look at property taxes in Florida. And insofar as business owners certainly pay property taxes on their commercial properties, we'll be engaging in that debate too. And I think there could be a lot of good to come out of that.
Bill, you're going to be a busy, busy guy, but it sounds like you're driven, and we really appreciate all that the NFIB has been doing to help the independent businesses, not only here in the state of Florida, but across the nation.
Thank you, Barry. NFIB stands ready to serve small business owners in Tallahassee and Washington, and we're easy to find.
Appreciate it so much. You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show. I want to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, you can put them right down in the comments below. And if you want to find the NFIB or Bill Herrle, just go to NFIB on your search engine and you'll find it. This is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.